Investor Brand Network, IBN, a multifaceted communications organization engaged in connecting public companies to the investment community, is pleased to announce the launch of the Stock2Me podcast as part of its sustained audio communications effort to provide specialized content distribution via widespread syndication channels. The following Stock2Me podcast is an Investor Brand Network audio production and may feature a client partner of IBN. Investor Brand Network may have been compensated for the production of this podcast. Please be sure to read our entire disclaimer for full disclosure. Thank you, and here today is your host of the Stock2Me podcast.
Welcome one, welcome all to another online business briefing where we shine a spotlight on some of the smartest and freshest plays out there in the market today. To that end, we are speaking with Lexaria Bioscience Corp. The company's traded on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol LEXX, and we're lucky enough to be joined by the chairman and CEO of Lexaria, and that's Chris Bunka. Chris, how are you doing today?
Having a great day. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks so much for asking, and thank you for taking the time to speak directly to your shareholders as well as our listeners. Now, for those listeners who may not be familiar with Lexaria Bioscience Corp, if you would, let's talk a little bit about the company and its business model and the markets it operates in first.
Absolutely. Well, Lexaria has been around for a few years in its current form. We have developed a drug delivery technology that's quite unique. It's heavily patented. We already have over 20 patents granted and another 50 pending. And what our technology does is it allows people to swallow any number of various drugs or APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, and basically allow a larger proportion of the drug to actually get to work, to get into your bloodstream and reach the site of action. That is what our technology is focused on. And because we're so good at it, we're actually seeing applications in all sorts of different business sectors, be it cannabidiol, nicotine for oral delivery, even antiviral drugs and others. So it's a really, really cool technology. We do not sell any drugs ourselves, but we do sell or rent our technology.
Yeah, I did my due diligence on the company, and listeners, I want you to do the same thing, and you can do so by visiting investorbrandnetwork.com. Click on the Clients tab, then in alphabetical order, find Lexaria Bioscience Corp. Now, you can also go to lexariabioscience.com. The company's got some great information there, as well as on YouTube. I watched a video about your company, and one of the big things that jumped out at me is this delivery also cuts down the time for the absorption, and it's not a small amount of cut down. You're talking from 90 minutes to what, Chris?
Some people don't believe me when I answer that question, honestly, but at times, believe it or not, and you imagine swallow a capsule into bloodstream in as little as 2 minutes.
That is a tremendous jump and a big game changer for a lot of companies. And that's what you mean. The applications are widespread from not only pharmaceuticals, but in the CBD market, in the cannabis market, nicotine. These are some massive market segments. So before we jump deeper into the company, let's learn a little bit about you as our guest today and the leadership of the company and the team you've surrounded yourself with.
Well, I'm afraid I'm a veteran at this point, which is always hard to talk about, but I've been in a number of different industry sectors over what is now a 40-year career. Construction and real estate development, natural resources, and technology over that 40-year span. I've been with Lexaria a long time, and my president and I, John Doherty, and I are the two people who are mostly responsible for the current business lines. So I've worked throughout North America in my career, half of it in private companies, the second half with public companies. And I'm delighted to be able to work on my final project of my career, which will be Lexaria. It's the most exciting thing I've ever worked on in my life. And I'm really, really fortunate to be part of the team that we have at Lexaria, which has some incredible scientists and business people involved in the company. So been around a while, never worked on anything as exciting as Lexaria.
Yeah, Lexaria Bioscience Corp, a global innovator in drug and drug delivery platforms. And as Chris pointed out, Dihydratech is covered by 21 issued and more than 50 pending patents in over 40 countries. So there's a lot on your plate as a company as we mow through 2021. What a year it's been following the pandemic of 2020. As you look back on 2021 so far, what do you see as some of the major milestones for the company, Chris?
Oh gosh, we've been so busy this year. Well, I guess the thing I would say to everybody, whether you're a current shareholder or listening about Lexaria for the first time, our company kind of had a rebirth in January of 2021. We had to go through a really painful process the previous year where we completed a 1-for-30 reverse stock split. That was really hard. And just so you all know, I was the biggest shareholder. I am still the biggest shareholder. So I took a big hit on my own holdings, but we had to do that to make the company attractive for future shareholders. So we did a big rollback. Then we got listed on NASDAQ in January and completed an $11 million financing. That was the biggest financing in the history of the company, and it transformed us. It really, really transformed us. And as a result of that, we were able to step on the gas pedal and basically work on our research and development and our commercial studies at a 5 to 10 times higher pace than anything we could do in the past. Therefore, this year, we've got so much to talk about. We've done more work this year than we did in the 5 years previous, all put together. So we've done a number of studies on antiviral drugs where we're trying to show, and we have evidence, that we can deliver a number of these antiviral drugs up to 2 and even 3 times more effectively than their actual manufacturers. We've also completed or are working on 5 studies this year for cannabidiol or CBD for hypertension. And guess what? Here's something that's really pretty amazing. We've done 3 human clinical trials already and a number of animal studies as well, where we've used the Hydrotech CBD, and we've compared it against generic CBD. Well, lo and behold, generic CBD has either had no effect or minimal effect on human blood pressure. And we believe that the reason for that is that in its normal form, without some sort of enhancement, it doesn't absorb very well. Most people take CBD, usually in a coconut oil base, which is a really bad choice for a lot of physiological reasons, and they don't get that much CBD into bloodstream. Well, contrast that with the Hydrotech CBD. In 1 human clinical study in 2018, 2 more this year, we've evidenced that the Hydrotech processed CBD lowers human blood pressure. And in our most recent study, we lowered it by as much as 22%. That's a really big number in the hypertension industry. And if we are able to sustain that number in future trials, it would make us equivalent to the world's best-selling hypertension drugs. And folks, those are drugs that sell more than $1 billion per year each drug. So we're really, really excited. And actually, we just announced in recent weeks that we are going to be pursuing an FDA pathway to investigate the use of the Hydrotech CBD for treating hypertension. So that's just one of 3, believe it or not, main focuses for this year. Another one is antiviral drugs, which I've already mentioned briefly. And the third one is something we've been working on for about 3 or 4 years, which is oral nicotine. And I want to say something straight off here, because some people criticize us when we talk about nicotine. We are not encouraging the use of nicotine with anybody who already use it. That's number 1. Number 2, our technology does not work and has no application with smoking or with vaping. So that's number 2. We're not interested in smokers. We're not interested in vaping. What our technology does do is allow you to swallow, say, a nicotine capsule or a nicotine oral pouch, which is a fast-growing market, and allows you to deal with your addiction to nicotine, get the satisfaction that you want out of nicotine, but guess what? No lung cancer, no emphysema, because we're not absorbed through the lungs. And if you think back just a couple of years, I'll bet all of you are familiar with a little company by the name of Juul. And Juul took the world by storm with their vape nicotine device. And you got to ask yourself, they were not the first vape company, and they weren't the last. Why did they have so much success? And I can tell you the answer was because they had a patented formulation that allowed for the nicotine through the vape device to absorb more quickly than anything else the market had ever seen. And of course, that all resulted in the roughly $12 billion buyout of Juul by Altria because they were stealing so much market share. Now, since then, vaping is not nearly as popular as it was. There's lots of health questions about that delivery method. And you've got this new method called the oral pouch. It's a little baggie, if you will, like a miniature tea bag, about the size of a thumbnail. And you put it in your mouth, and the nicotine absorbs through your mouth tissues. Well, that industry is expected to grow to over $20 billion in just a few years, and Lexaria firmly believes that we are in possession of the world's number one technology for that market, and we are investigating the use of our technology for that market as we speak. And oh, by the way, because of our previous work on nicotine back in 2018, we already have formal relationships that we are allowed to speak of with both Altria, which is the owner of Marlboro, and with British American Tobacco, which is actually quite a lot larger than Altria. So the world's largest nicotine companies are already paying attention to us. That's a third area of our focus. We even have more, but I'm going to talk your ear off if I keep going on. We're going to be investigating, and we are investigating things like PDE5 inhibitors. Those are products like Viagra or Cialis. We're also investigating estrogen. We're investigating THC. We're investigating the minor cannabinoids, all using our same technology. So one of the things I'll finally summarize by saying, one of the things that we're really proud of is that we give our investors, our shareholders, multiple shots on net. We don't expect to be successful in absolutely everything that we pursue, but we do expect to be successful in at least a couple of them. And since we have about 5 or 6 areas of investigation, we're really, really excited for what the next year might deliver to our shareholders.
Well, to say Lexaria's Dehydratech is a game changer or disruptive at this point might be a little bit of an understatement, or quite an understatement, to be quite honest with you. Since 2016, Dehydratech has repeatedly demonstrated with cannabinoids and nicotine the ability to increase bioabsorption by up to 5 to 10 times, reduce time of onset from 1 to 2 hours to just minutes. Here's some other high-level takeaways from Dehydratech, and that would be it speeds up delivery. We touched on that. It increases bioavailability. It increases brain absorption. It improves drug potency. It reduces drug administration costs, masks unwanted taste. This is going to make you the belle of the ball, Chris, and it's such a great time to be speaking with you. Hey, as we look at wrapping up 2021, Chris, what are some of the things on the agenda for the company to close out 2021?
Investors and observers are going to notice a lot of news from us in the next 3, 4, 5 months. We're going to be completing a number of studies that we started earlier in the year on hypertension, on nicotine, on THC, and a number of other molecules. So there'll be a big news flow going into the winter and coming out of the winter. We will also be announcing our plans for 2022 and the first half of 2023. You're the first people to hear me speak of this at all. We recently have received the internal board of directors approval for our budgets and our plans, and I can tell you we will have from September 1, about a month ago, in the next 24 months, we expect to have over 30 applied R&D projects and study programs launched. We will never in the history of the company would we ever have had this kind of news flow. We also will be planning to make our formal applications to the FDA for an IND, an investigational new drug using CBD to treat hypertension in America. And by the way, the European Union and Australia have already granted us patent granted to use the Hydrotech to process CBD to, you guessed it, treat heart disease. We are waiting on that patent in America and elsewhere. So we really expect to have some valuable releases and developments in the next 4 to 6 months, and quite frankly, over the next 12 to 24 months. It's never been such an exciting period. We've just hired a couple more people. We've been hiring people and expanding, even in the midst of COVID. So it's a really, really exciting time.
Well, listeners, I want to draw your attention to something else as well. September 23rd, 2021, that's the date line using the ticker symbol on the NASDAQ, LEXX. Here's the headline, LEXX, an investment that's easy to swallow. So an initiation of a research report was done on the company with a valuation of $15 per share. The company's currently traded just north of $6 a share. That is an excellent read. Once again, another great read on the company is available at investorbrandnetwork.com. Chris, I want to thank you for your time, your insights, and availability to answer these questions. I know this was a great interview for all who get a chance to listen to it. So thanks so much for your contribution to that, Chris.
You're very welcome. Happy to do it anytime.
All right, for Chris Bunka, this is Stuart Smith saying thanks so much for listening.
The following Stock2Me podcast was an Investor Brand Network audio production. IBN is a financial news and publishing company delivering a new generation of corporate communication solutions, including news aggregation and syndication, social communication, and enhanced news release services. Investor Brand Network may receive payments for corporate communications relations, as well as various press releases and social media solutions provided to its clients. IBN holds no shares of any company named on the IBN sites, brands, and/or podcasts. To be clear, all officers, directors, and independent contractors of Investor Brand Network hold zero positions in and do not trade or intend to trade the securities for their own accounts. This interview is not an offer or recommendation to buy or sell securities. Information in this broadcast is presented solely for informative purposes and is not intended to be or should it be construed as investment advice. As in all investments, investment in the featured company carries an investment risk. Listeners should review the company thoroughly with the registered investment advisor or registered stockbroker. This podcast audio interview by Investor Brand Network is not intended to be a complete study of the featured company or other companies mentioned. Information used and statements of fact have been obtained from featured company and other sources, but not verified nor guaranteed by Investor Brand Network as to completeness and accuracy. Such information is subject to change without notice. Please see our full disclaimers and disclosures at investorbrandnetwork.com.